All right, I'm going to be in 2 Kings chapter 6, starting with verse 13 this morning. Here, this is the story of Elisha. In verse 13, the king of Syria said, "Go spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him." And it was told him, saying, "Behold, he is in Dothan." Okay, so he's looking for Elisha to bring him to him. Okay. And he was told that he was in Dothan. So, verse 14 says, "Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots, and a great host. And they came by night, and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early, and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do?" All right, now I'm going to pause right there for just a second, okay? Now this is Elisha's servant, okay? And he woke up early, just in time to see this army, okay, of horses and chariots, okay? And imagine that you were that servant, you wake up and you see that. This is exactly how we all would react. What are we going to do? They're outnumbering us. They're coming around the whole city. They're surrounding us. What are we going to do? Now, if you had a servant that asked you that in that situation, what would you say? I'll tell you what I'd say. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. Run. I don't know. But let's look at this. Verse 16. "And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them." Now, that is faith in God that we all need to get to. Okay, Elisha knew that God was providing, and he had so much faith in it that he told him, "Calm down. We're being surrounded by an army of chariots and horses. They're going to kill us. Calm down. The ones that are with us are more than the ones that are with them. It may look bad, but I promise the ones that are with us are more than with them." In verse 17 it says, Elisha prayed and said, "Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see." And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. So, the servant in carnality, in his flesh, saw the physical army that the king of Syria had sent to come and take Elisha. Okay? So they were outnumbered. There was a hopeless situation as far as the flesh is concerned. As far as this carnality is concerned, that's a hopeless situation. If you're out and about and there's an army chasing you and they catch up to you, especially on horses and chariots, then you can't run, you can't hide, there's too many. It's just a hopeless situation, according to the flesh. But what does he say? He says, "Calm down. For the ones that are with us are more than the ones that are with them." And God opened the young man's eyes, and what does it say? The mountains, the hills were covered with chariots of fire. So when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, "Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness." And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, "This is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, I will bring you to the man whom ye seek." But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come into Samaria, that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, my father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? Now, the king of Israel is trying to do what's right here. Okay? This army was sent to attack Israel to take Elisha. Okay? They had intentions of harm on the people of Israel. Okay? So the king of Israel says, should I kill them? What do I do? Should I kill them? And that's what any leader would do in this situation, because that's what you do. That's what you do. If there was an invading army that came into the United States, guaranteed our president would retaliate. That's what you do. So he's following what he knows to be right. But listen to this. Verse 22 says, and he answered, thou shalt not smite them. Wouldest thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink, and go to their master. And he prepared a great provision for them. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away. And they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. Whoa. I mean, like I said, we just know that when people come to do us harm, that we retaliate. The reason leaders do that is to stop the invasion. Okay? Because normally, if you send them back home after you captured them, they're just going to go get more and come back. So, what's the right thing to do? Put an end to it. An ultimate end. Kill them. Right? Well, that's what this flesh tells us. But Elisha's not working in the flesh here. Elisha's working in the Spirit. In the Spirit, God told him what to do with these people. So he said, don't kill them. Let's give them some food. Let's give them something to drink. Let's make sure their bellies are full. Because you can't... If you were meaning harm on someone and they took you in and they fed you and they took good care of you and you had a good time laughing and having, basically a banquet with these people, you're not going to come back and try to kill them, because they treated you in a way that enemies don't treat you.
True.
So they fed them. They gave them food. They gave them drink. They sat with them. They didn't put them in cells. They didn't say that they locked them up and gave them bread and water. It says in 23, and he prepared a great provision. A great provision. He had a buffet ready for them. All kinds of food. All these drinks and things. Whatever they wanted, they took care of these men that intended to do them harm. They killed them with kindness, in other words. And what did that do? If we read on, we see, like it said, that they never attacked Israel again. You see, if they'd have killed them, they would have built their armies up and came back for retaliation. Because violence begets violence. If someone comes in to do you harm, there's a lot of movies like this, but one guy comes in to kill this guy, and the guy's waiting on him, so he kills him instead. And then the brother of that guy comes back over here. You killed my brother, so I'm going to kill you. So he kills him, and then that guy's brother comes back and says, well, you killed my brother, so I'm going to kill you. And it's just an endless cycle of violence, because that's what violence creates, is more violence. But what does love create? You see, that's what they were doing here, is they answered violence and hate with love and kindness. They fed them, they took care of them, they made a great provision Like if I were going to go and have an argument with someone and they told me, just hold on, let's sit down and eat a great meal. Anything you want to drink, anything you want to eat. It would be really hard to have that argument after it was all over with because they treated me so well. They treated me so well. How am I supposed to, it'd be like, well, what would you want to talk about? It doesn't matter. It don't matter, it's fine. So that's what happened here. You see, Elisha knew that they were taken care of. It looked like a hopeless situation. It looked like a situation that they couldn't get out of. That it was just completely hopeless. That his servant was scared to death. I'm sure his heart was racing. He didn't know what to do. He was panicking. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? He told him, calm down. Because there's more with us than there are them. You see, God's provision for Israel was greater than the attackers that were coming on them. A lot of times we as humans, when Satan attacks us or when life attacks us or whatever the case may be, we focus on that. We become Elisha's servants in those situations. We think, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we're focused more on the problem than we are on the problem solver.
True.
And then when we're focused on the problem more than the problem solver, then all that exists is the problem. And then that problem overtakes us because we're not focused on the problem solver. You see, the difference here is that the servant was focused on the problem, but Elisha, the man of God, was focused on the problem solver. And the problem solver had already provided the solution to that problem. He knew that they were going to send all those horses and chariots. And not only that, but God knew how many horses and how many chariots and how many men and swords and knives and bows and arrows and all those things that were going to be in this army that was being sent to Israel to attack them.
Yeah. So
guess what his provision was? More than the ones that came after them. It was more. They couldn't see them, but the provision that God sent was more. And abundantly more. So there was no way, even if these people were able to attack them, they wouldn't have been able to do anything. And I said abundantly more because they didn't have to use that provision. Because the man of God prayed to God. Not only did he pray to God to open the eyes of his servant so that he could see the provision that God had provided, but he prayed to God to close the eyes, to blind the ones who had came to attack them, to where he walked up and talked to them and said, this ain't the place you're supposed to be. I'm not the man you're looking for, but hold on, I'll take you to him. That's the oldest trick in the book. But they fell for it because God blinded them. And so the man that they were there to capture led them to Samaria. One man, a prophet. In one part of I think it's 1 Kings, they described him as a hairy man. He was basically one that lived out in the woods. He lived off by himself. Kind of like if you know the description of John the Baptist. If you've watched The Chosen, they call him Crazy John because he looks crazy. He really does. He's got a wild beard and he never, brushes his hair. He's just a wild, crazy looking dude. Well, that's basically what all these prophets looked like back in these days. Because they didn't bother themselves with worldly things, they were about God. But anyway, this crazy looking man, looked like an old wild feral guy from the woods. was able to take this whole army captive without lifting a finger. He just prayed to God, and he believed that God would provide. You see, that was the difference between the prophets then and the prophets now. Okay? Now, I was listening to a Bible study on Old Testament prophets and New Testament prophets. Okay? And Old Testament prophets, they would go into a trance. What the guy was saying was an open-eyed trance. And whatever they said was not their own words. It was God's word. And whatever they said absolutely 100% came true.
True.
Okay? But now the New Testament prophets, the word is subject to the prophet. God backs up the word of the prophet. But anyway, you see, he had been a prophet for so long, and he had experienced God doing exactly what he said he was going to do, that when he prayed, there was no doubt. No doubt in his mind. When he prayed, open his eyes so that he can see. He knew that his servant was going to see what he was going to see. And when he said, blind the eyes of them that come and attack us, he knew 100%, without a doubt, that God was going to blind them enough to where he didn't send his servant, hey, go over there and tell them to go over there. He himself walked up and led them into Samaria. They were blinded enough to follow the man they were after to Samaria, to where there was nothing they could do. They were surrounded themselves and taken captive. But then, you see, we as Christians, we as people of God, sons and daughters of God himself, see, we are held to a standard that's different than the world. See, here, Elisha, as a man of God, was held to a standard different than the world. He was held to a standard different than what was known to do. Anytime, like I said, an army comes to attack you, the response is retaliation. I mean, you see it in all these historical movies. You read it in history books. When an army invades, the thing that the world tells you you got to do is build up an army and respond. Retaliate. But God didn't want that to happen, so the man of God told him, don't do that. Don't kill them. Don't retaliate. Don't answer violence with more violence. But prepare a great provision. Let them eat. Let them drink. Let's have a good time. And then we'll send them back home to their master. And they never came back.
Amen.
You see, that's how we have to retaliate to things that come against us. You see, when we're doing right, we're going to have trials. Because what does that do? Anytime that you have to physically get better, you have a physical trial. Whether that's working out, an obstacle course, whatever the case may be. Some kind of training that's going to put you through the works. And that's how you get better. If you want to learn to run a mile, guess what you got to do? You start running. And then the conditioning, eventually, it hurts at first. Your lungs start feeling like they're going to collapse. And it hurts to breathe, especially when it's cold outside. It just hurts. But you push through those things. And eventually it stops hurting. And then you push yourself a little further. And you continue that over and over. And eventually you can run however long you need to without issue. That's just how that works. It's the same thing spiritually. If we're doing things right spiritually, there's going to be trials. It's not always going to be Satan sending them, though. We got to realize that. Sometimes the trials are put in front of us by God so that we become stronger. It's just like lifting weights. You know, if you get underneath a bench press and it's real heavy, you can't be like, Satan, how dare you put this barbell on me? And Satan didn't do that. You did that to yourself, so you get stronger. That's how that works. But you see, we go through things to make us stronger. And how we react to it is how it makes us stronger. Here, you see, they were retaliating against violence with love and kindness. And that made them stronger spiritually. If they would have attacked them back, maybe that would have made them stronger physically. But that's not what the goal was here. Elisha wanted to be spiritually strong here. And that was the answer, that was the ultimate answer that stopped the whole solution, is a spiritual answer of love and kindness. Okay, that's the only way we can stop violence. Have you ever had somebody that you just could not get along with for whatever reason? And it was just, the situation would just get worse and worse and worse and worse, and then finally you realize, I just need to let go of this and allow myself to become friends with them. And then the problem stops. That's what happened here. They could have retaliated with violence, and it would have been a war that lasted years. A lot of people died. But they prepared a great provision. Let them eat and drink. They took care of them, had a good time with them. They were friendly. They showed them love and kindness. And it ended it. That night, it ended it. See, we need to learn how to not only depend on God, but to listen to how He wants us to take care of things. Because a lot of times we have an idea of how we're going to retaliate. My whole life, I've always prepared. I've always been a little dude. I've always tried to prepare myself to defend myself if need be. And how I did that was to learn how to take violence to violence. That's how the world teaches you to do it. So how do you learn how to fight back against someone trying to harm you? You learn how to harm them back. And if you can harm them worse than they harm you, then they'll stop, right? Wrong. They just go and they learn how to harm you worse than you harm them, and then it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth like that. Just like I was talking about earlier, it's a vicious cycle. But also, like I was talking about earlier, if we just let go of that and be friendly, learn how to show love and kindness, then it'll end it. Now you see, there's a lot that we can take out of this. Because, just the demeanor of Elisha when they were being attacked. Told him, fear not, for they that be with us more than they that be with them. If we can take on our trials and our tribulations like that, when life throws curveballs at us, I don't know how I'm going to pay this bill. We think, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. The man who created the universe, the God who created the universe, the man who died on the cross and used His own blood to wash me of my sin, is on my side, providing for me. He promised me that He would provide for me. Then I need to fear not, for they that are with me are greater than they that are in the world. There are men that would come after you if you can't pay your bill. Just like me and you. They're just flesh and bone. But the God who created the universe is the one providing for me. That's taking care of me. You see, here, it was greater than that. They were there to cause harm. They were there to kill people. And Elisha said, fear not. Because he knew that God was going to provide. He already knew God had already provided. So he believed that God was going to take care of it. And he was bold enough to walk up and lead that whole army to Samaria, where they were taken captive, and then show them love and kindness in the whole situation. I hope I've said something to bless you this morning. Is there any comments or questions?
That army realized that their God was greater than their God. they realized that their God was great enough to do what they did, capture them, and also to treat them like they did. So they knew all that was God. That's why they didn't come back.
Right. That a lot of times throughout the Bible, there was parts of Elijah where they had proved to a certain king. They sent after the prophets of Balaam, for to answer whatever. And then Elijah went and said, "Do you send for these people? You don't know there's a God in Israel?" And he said, "Because of this, you're going to die in the beds you lay." And he did, because God proved that He was greater than the God of the people who served Balaam. But you see, that's how it is. You can pray and scream and cut yourself like the prophets of Baal did all you want to, but if you're not calling out to the right God, it's not going to work. But if you call out to God, you see, Elisha didn't even have to call out. He didn't have to scream and holler and act crazy to get his attention. He just said, "Open his eyes, God." And it happened. Because that's how great a God that we serve. Absolutely. Anything else? If not,